Seminole fans, game day is almost upon us, and with a little twist, thanks to Hurricane Dorian, the game will be here at Doak Campbell Stadium, Florida State versus Boise State, high noon on Saturday, right here in Tallahassee. That's where we're going to start. For the fourth consecutive year, FSU officials and fans have spent a significant amount of time eyeing the weather, maybe even more so than the opponent. This time, we got caught. Have to move the game from Jacksonville to Tallahassee. It's becoming a reoccurring theme every year. Has to be a little bit frustrating, but yeah, Florida State's doing the best they can.
Yeah.
Tickets for $10. As of right now, they've sold already 12,000 of those tickets. General admission. I mean,
Free parking.
Free parking. It's a great situation for Seminole fans to make the best of a bad situation.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, look, this thing really kind of came down to the wire, and you want to play as best you can, but I mean the safety of everybody is paramount, and so thankfully we were able to come up with a solution to get some football this weekend. And like you said, at $10 tickets, general admission, free parking, it has the potential to be a lot of fun. So come on down here. It should be a pretty unique day, pretty unique atmosphere, and of course a season opener against an opponent that Florida State has never ever played before. And in regard to the weather, I mean, what can you say? It is what it is. It's being the fourth straight year. Guys on this team are used to it. Everybody's been through this to some degree, and even the ones that maybe didn't exactly impact the schedule. 4 years ago was the Ole Miss game. I remember being here, getting ready to go to Orlando, and the power was out at Doak Campbell Stadium. And last year it impacted the bye week, and that Wake Forest game was uncertain there for a while. And then, of course, everybody remembers in 2017 with the NC State and Miami game, that all getting messed up, or ULM game. Getting all messed up. It's just sort of something that we're having to deal with right now. It's sort of a reality of life as a college football team in Florida, and you sort of make the adjustments as best you can. You move on and you play and you try to be successful.
Obviously, the decisions were made what's going to be best for the safety of the residents of Jacksonville and for the entire state of Florida, with Dorian bearing down this weekend. But there is a game to be played. The Seminoles taking on the Broncos. A lot of the talk, obviously, is going to be of Florida State's offense. James Blackman taking over as starting quarterback. Willie Taggart announced that on Sunday. Offensive line fans are excited to see how that group has developed under Randy Clements, and, of course, the offense as a whole under Kendall Briles. Those things are obviously intertwined, Blackman's success and the offensive line. They'll get a good test against Curtis Weaver, one of the best defensive ends coming back this year in college football.
Yeah, he's a preseason All-Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year, 20.5 sacks the last 2 seasons. That's the most of any returning player in college football. So those of us who are wondering what kind of progress the offensive line has made, it's not going to take too long to find out. He's a talented player, projected first-round pick, so it should be a pretty big test. But, look, I think there's a lot of reason for optimism with that group. We've seen it, you've seen it, particularly in your mic'd-up segments with Coach Clements and even Coach Odell Hagens as well, because his group goes against those guys on the offensive line so much. There's definite improvement happening there. You can look at it physically. Look at a guy like Brady Scott, who I think would tell you that was kind of thrust into action before he was really ready to play. Man, he looks the part of a big physical college offensive lineman. Same goes for Jawan Williams, the left tackle. A guy who was playing hurt for much of last year, and maybe he wasn't quite ready either. Man, just physically, you can see what those guys have done in the weight room, done in the strength and conditioning programs, and if you watch practice, you can see, man, they're getting it. Is it going to be perfect on Saturday? Probably not. Is going up against a potential first-round draft pick at defensive end an ideal way to break in a new position coach, a new offense? Well, hey, everybody's got stuff they got to deal with this time of year. But I would be, I'll be very surprised if we don't see some tangible progress and improvement from those guys.
I agree with you. I think you'll see that progress on offense, especially with those offensive linemen. Defensively, some new things to look at as well. A 3-4 defense. Harlan Barnett's group is going to show that a lot this season. It's a fascinating look because you've got Marvin Wilson, Robert Cooper, and Corey Durden slated to start on the defensive line. That's a whole lot of beef down there. Will they be able to rush the passer? It'll be a great test because you have a experienced offensive line for Boise State, all 5 guys returning from last season. But on the flip side, you've got a young quarterback making his first start, Hank Bachmeier for the Broncos. Certainly a fascinating matchup if you want to see how this defense is going to play this year.
No, it really is interesting. And again, like you said, all 5 starting offensive linemen, 2 of those guys were all Mountain West Conference a year ago. But what's kind of interesting is, they're experienced, and I think there's some talented guys there. They did give up almost 2.5 sacks per game last year. I think that ranked somewhere in the 80s nationally. So, I wouldn't call them dominant. Now we can expect them to improve a little bit as well. But between that and then a true freshman quarterback playing his first game in Doak Campbell Stadium, that's going to be an interesting thing. But I mean, he does have a pedigree to him. He's from Southern California, a former 4-star prospect, had offers from the SEC. I think Georgia was in on him, Tennessee was in on him. He just kind of liked the idea of living in Boise, Idaho. I found an interview with him where he said that he liked not living too close to people, and he liked being around wildlife and coyotes and seeing the stars at night, which, hey, that's cool. Maybe you get that more in Boise than you do in Knoxville. I don't know. But it'll be certainly a different scenario, an interesting kind of case study for him and for Florida State's defense in that three-man front, like you said. A whole bunch of big guys up there, and then you like to think, some more athletic players, some speedier players on the outside who, I think when we see Josh Kando or Janarius Robinson, what are they going to do? Are they going to rush the passer? Are they going to drop back into coverage? The idea to be that you can kind of do anything in any given play and hopefully keep the offense off balance and not know, where the pressure's coming from, where the coverage is coming from, and try to see them a little bit. So I'm really, really curious to see how that looks. I mean, we haven't seen a 3-4 style defense at Florida State, and I don't know that I can remember it, aside from maybe, on occasion, but operating out of that as your base defense, which I think is what's going to happen, it's going to be different. It's not unheard of. I think Alabama does that. A lot of teams in the NFL still do it, and if you have the personnel to pull it off, and obviously Florida State's defensive staff believes that they do, it can be really, really effective. So I'm excited to see how that looks.
Willie Taggart and the players have all admitted game one is so important for this team. You saw what it can build so much momentum. You saw what's happened the last 2 years with those losses to start the season. How critical is this game one for the Noles to come out, have a good performance, and get a victory?
Oh gosh, yeah. Look, and everybody thinks game one is important, right? Of course it is, but good gravy. The complexion of the rest of the season, I think, particularly among fans and media and just onlookers, is going to really sort of hinge on this game. And look, that's not to say that one game is going to set the course for the entire season. We see it all the time. Teams can win their first game and go on to not be nearly as good as you thought they were going to be based on that game, and vice versa. We saw teams. How many times have you seen a team wins a big game in week one and goes on to kind of just be average or mediocre? So it doesn't necessarily work that way, but I think for the perception of this program, for the players, for their confidence, and going into year two and trying to turn things around from what it was last year, and getting a win in this game, whether it's convincing or not, getting a win to me would be a really huge step in the right direction, particularly with ULM again the next week at home before you go on the road for your first conference game at Virginia, which I think is going to be a challenge. You'd really would love to go into that game 2-0 if you can help it. We're getting ahead of ourselves, obviously, but the short answer to your question is, yeah, it feels like the biggest opener here in a while.
We're not here for the short answers. We're getting in depth with you for the game preview, of course. Noles Broncos Saturday right here in Doak Campbell Stadium, high noon. If you can't make it to the stadium, that game's on ESPN News. But make it to the stadium. $10, free parking, general admission. If you walk up game day, decide on Saturday morning, let's go, the tickets are $15.
Still a bargain.
I agree with you. This could be one of the most unique crowds that the Doak Campbell Stadium's seen in a long time.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited to see it. I think it has the potential to be a lot of fun. It's a big name opponent, unique opponent. Again, Florida State's never played against Boise State before. It's gonna be pretty cool.
There you have it, Seminole fans. Get out, support your Noles, and we'll have everything you need after the game as well. For Tim, I'm Lane. Go Noles.